4 working-class boys from Liverpool. In 10 years they transformed their look more dramatically than any artist in the history of popular culture. From greasy leather in the Cavern Club to collarless Cardin suits, to Nehru jackets, to Sgt. Pepper military regalia, to rooftop denim, to 4 individual solo visions. The Beatles didn't just make music. They made looks. And every look told you exactly what era they were in. This is Style Breakdown, The Beatles. Liverpool, 1958. Before anyone knew their names. John, Paul, George, and eventually Ringo, working-class boys in a working-class city. Their fathers were sailors, bus drivers, cotton merchants. Their style reflected exactly where they came from: teddy boy influences, drainpipe trousers, quiffs. Not sophisticated. Not designed. Just real. And that realness, that working-class foundation, never entirely left them, no matter how far they went. Hamburg, 1960. The Reeperbahn. Playing 8 hours a night in strip clubs. This is where the leather was born. Black leather jackets, cheap, durable, practical for all-night sessions. Leather trousers acquired in Germany. The look said, "We are dangerous. We will play until you can't stand." Hamburg made them hard. Hamburg made them tight musically. And Hamburg gave them the leather uniform that rock history never forgot. 1961. The Cavern Club in Liverpool. Brian Epstein walks in. He sees something. He becomes their manager. And the first thing he says is, "The leather has to go." Brian Epstein's intervention was the most consequential wardrobe decision in music history. He understood that to reach the mainstream, they needed to look accessible. Suits. Ties. Smiles. The leather boys become the Fab Four. The suits. Pierre Cardin collarless. Later the round-neck mod jackets by Dougie Millings in London. Chelsea boots, Cuban heel, pointed toe. Mop-top haircuts courtesy of a street Kircher in Hamburg. This was not an accident. Every element was deliberate. The suits said, "We are serious musicians." The haircuts said, "We are different from anything you've seen." The combination said, "We are the future." 60 million Americans watching The Ed Sullivan Show agreed. The Pierre Cardin collarless suit of 1963 to 1964 is one of the most important fashion moments of the 20th century. Cardin's space-age collection was futurist, minimal, revolutionary. The Beatles adopted it and wore it to the center of the world. Those clean collarless necklines removed the formal stuffiness of traditional suits while keeping the sharp structure. It said, "We respect tradition enough to subvert it beautifully." Fashion historians still teach this. 1965. The Beatles are wearing Hung on You and John Stephen pieces from Carnaby Street. Military influences beginning to appear. Turtlenecks. John in round wire-rimmed glasses, not prescription at first, purely aesthetic. The suits are loosening. The ties are getting wider and more patterned. They're not yet psychedelic, but the cracks in the clean mod uniform are showing. They're about to become something completely different. And you can see it starting right here. 1966. They stop touring forever. And the style explodes into psychedelia. No more performing means no more needing to look accessible. John in military jackets covered in medals and badges. Paul in a cape. George discovering Indian clothing, kurtas, loose silks. Ringo in everything sequined he can find. The Nehru collar replacing the Pierre Cardin. Paisley. Velvet. Fur. Feathers. Victorian antique finds. Kings Road Chelsea boutiques feeding a new vision. 1967. The most important album in history gets the most important costumes in history. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Designed by MT Clothing in London. 4 custom-made military band uniforms in psychedelic colors. John, pink and purple, tassels and frogging. Paul, blue and red, epaulets and gold braid. George, deep blue-green, Indian embroidery details. Ringo, deep red with military precision, most decorated. These weren't clothes. They were costumes for an invented alter ego. Fashion and concept album as one unified artwork. Let's zoom in on each Beatles' individual style voice. John Lennon, the intellectual provocateur. Minimal, deliberately unflattering sometimes, wire-rimmed glasses as identity, military antiques, progressive fashion statements. Paul McCartney, the romantic pragmatist. Always slightly cleaner than the others, appreciating craft, wearing looks with natural ease. George Harrison, the seeker. Moving toward India earlier than anyone, the most spiritually dressed Beatle, sitar embroidery, natural fabrics. Ringo Starr, the joyful maximalist. Sequins, rings on every finger, pattern mixing without rules, pure fun. John Lennon's round wire-rimmed glasses deserve their own chapter. He started wearing them purely for aesthetics, inspired by Victorian photographs. By 1966 they became inseparable from his identity. Then they became the symbol of the peace movement. The glasses that Yoko Ono wore after his death. The glasses that appear on Imagine. From fashion accessory to political symbol to icon of grief. A pair of glasses that changed what glasses meant in the 20th century. George Harrison's fashion journey is the most philosophically interesting of the four. Meeting Ravi Shankar in 1966 changed everything. George didn't just wear Indian clothing as fashion, he wore it as devotion. As practice. The white kurta, the dhoti, the mala beads, these weren't costume pieces. They were spiritual statements. George Harrison made Indian dress understandable and aspirational to an entire generation of Westerners. Fashion as pilgrimage. 1968, The White Album. The look is fragmenting as completely as the band itself. John's all-white phase beginning. Pure minimalism as statement. The white suit, the white turtleneck, the white everything. Paul in a simple brown corduroy jacket, very Beatles rooftop preview. George in his Indian simplicity. Ringo in wild printed suits that nobody else could wear. The unified visual identity is gone. For individuals wearing four completely different stories. Fashion as autobiography. January 30th, 1969. The Apple Corps rooftop on Savile Row. The last public Beatles performance. And the clothes are stripped back. Devastatingly raw. John in a green military-style coat, Yoko in fur and leather. Paul in a simple black shirt, red and blue shirt layers, easy and natural. George in a black fur-trimmed coat, brown trousers. Ringo in a red shirt and navy military coat. The psychedelic maximalism is gone. They look like people. Real, cold, January in London people. That rawness makes the performance even more devastating. You cannot discuss John Lennon's late-period style without Yoko Ono. From 1968 onward, John and Yoko dressed as one. Matching all-white outfits for the Amsterdam bed-in. The fur coats and sunglasses as political costume. Conceptual fashion, if peace can be performed in bed then clothing is part of the performance. Yoko brought avant-garde art school ideas to John's instinctive provocateur style. Together they created something neither could alone. The Beatles' hair evolution is its own story. 1960, coiffed and greased in Hamburg. 1963, the mop top, Astrid Kirchher's invention, combed forward into the fringe, revolutionary. 1965, the mop getting longer on everyone. 1967, John in a beard for the first time, mustache appearing. 1968, all four with beards and long hair, the hippie look arrives. 1970, John with full long hair and beard, Paul's most natural, George with flowing spiritual length. From quiff to hippie in a decade. Same heads. Completely different people. The Chelsea boot. Elastic-sided. Cuban-heeled. Pointed-toed. The Beatles wore J. Sparks Hall Chelsea boots, a design that had existed since the 1850s for equestrian use. The Beatles brought them into rock and roll in 1963. Today Chelsea boots are on every runway, every high street, 60 years later. The Beatles didn't invent them. They just wore them in front of 60 million people. That's enough. The Chelsea boot is still the Beatles' boot. The Nehru collar. Named for Jawaharlal Nehru, first Prime Minister of India. The Beatles adopted it in 1966, replacing the Cardin collarless. Stand-up Mandarin collar, no lapels, usually in silk or fine fabric. John and Paul wearing matching Nehru jackets at press events. The Nehru went from South Asian political dress to Western youth fashion faster than anything before it. By 1968, every man in America was wearing a Nehru jacket. 2 years from India to Iowa. That's the Beatles effect. Fashion history credits the Beatles. But who made the clothes? Dougie Millings, the London tailor who created the original mod suits and the collarless jackets worn on Ed Sullivan. MT Clothing made the Sgt. Pepper costumes. Tommy Nutter on Savile Row, Paul, Ringo, and John wore his wide lapel suits for the Abbey Road cover. The tailors made the vision possible. Fashion is always a collaboration. August 8, 1969. The Abbey Road cover shoot. 22 minutes. 6 takes. For people walking across a road. And every detail is analyzed to this day. John in all white. Paul in navy suit, barefoot, carrying cigarette. George in denim shirt and jeans, the most casual of the four. Ringo in black suit, most formal. Nobody coordinated. Nobody planned 4 different looks to mean anything. And yet they mean everything. The outfits somehow perfectly describe where each Beatle was mentally and emotionally. August 1969. Almost over. 1970. They're gone. And the fashion tells the full story. John goes to pure minimalism, white, jeans, work shirt. Then the Imagine phase, pristine white rooms, white clothes. Paul goes rural, Wings era denim and casual, McCartney country farm. George goes fully Indian, saffron robes, spiritual simplicity. Ringo goes full glam star, sequins, his own fashion label, wide lapels, and platform boots. The same 4 people who wore matching collarless suits in 1963 couldn't look more different by 1975. That divergence is the story of the 60s becoming the 70s. What did the Beatles actually change in fashion? They made long hair acceptable on men. They brought Indian clothing to Western wardrobes. They made the Chelsea boot a permanent fixture. They made the Nehru collar a global phenomenon. They proved that musicians could direct and own their visual identity. They showed that a wardrobe transformation could parallel and communicate an artistic evolution. Every band that reinvented its look, Bowie, Madonna, Beyoncé, learned that possibility from the Beatles. Fashion theorists love the Beatles because their evolution proves a central thesis. Clothes are not decoration. They are communication. The leather said, "We are dangerous." The mod suit said, "We are serious." The psychedelic explosion said, "We are free." Sgt. Pepper said, "We have created a new identity entirely." The rooftop said, "This is us, just us, raw." Each look was sending a message before a single note played. Visual communication at the speed of a glance. That is what great style does. That style breakdown, the Beatles. From Hamburg leather to rooftop rawness in a decade. 4 working-class lads who taught the world how to dress without ever trying to teach anyone anything. They just wore what they felt. And the world followed. Next episode, David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust, the single most theatrical style transformation in rock history. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Drop a comment. Which Beatles era is your favorite? I read every single one.